Okay, we are live on Facebook via this amazing app called BeLive.tv. And I am so excited after spending the afternoon figuring out how to get this app to work. This is so awesome to be on with my mom, Ulla Jacobs. Say hi, Mom.
Hi.
Ulla is in, see, I thought I had those notifications. That's okay. Mom is in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. I am in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My name is Andrea Reed. If you don't know who I am, nice to see you here on a Saturday night. We are live here in Oklahoma and Vancouver Island, Canada, to talk about some health stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some health stuff. So let me just share this video real quick right before we dive into it, because I want to make sure that everyone in the event gets a chance to see this too, because we have the Facebook event. Christine's on there. She says, hi there, lovely ladies. Hi, Christine. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Christine.
And we're going to share this in the event. So all the people there get it. And let's go ahead and tag you as well, Mom.
Okay.
And then we can make sure that all of your friends and Facebook people, yep, you're already tagged. Okay. So that should come on there too. So your technical support team is at play here.
Awesome. As you
Hi. So people are jumping on right now. Mm-hmm. If you're just getting on Facebook right now, get settled. Make sure you have a pen and some paper, maybe some tea or some water. We're getting ready to get started and talk about health stuff. There's kind of a lot of health stuff going on for a lot of people. And so knowing the story that my mom, that Ulla, went through when I was a small child, and then hearing other people share about what I see friends and you know, distant friends, Facebook friends, or friends across the globe going through health-wise, and then knowing the tools that I was brought up with, I just thought it'd be really important to get you on here, Mom, and give your story a voice and give you a chance to share all the knowledge that you've had, that you've shared in our living room, one-on-one, 5-10 people at a time kind of thing. Just giving you a larger platform for people to take what they want, leave what they don't, and just give people a chance to see all the different options that are available there. So do you want to start with a little bit about kind of like, I posted your bio, but a little bit about who you are and, what we're going to talk about tonight?
Yes, I have been a researcher for probably about 45 years, and the research has been widespread with very, very many things, including healthy eating and cooking and sorts of natural healing methods, holistic healing, parapsychology, and mind, body, and energy. It's gone on and on and on. And I'm finding that every time now when I get interested in something, something appears, like a book or an article appears to help me to find more. So the research is definitely ongoing. But it started, and I'm retired, by the way. I'm retired. I'm going into year 17 of retirement. My husband and I were happy enough to be able to take Freedom 55. So we're really enjoying our life at home and doing other things than the 9 to 5. But as far as the health journey back to health goes, it began for me with coming off the birth control pill. And that was a major turnaround in my health going down. The very first thing that happened was my entire face was covered with little pimples. The entire face, every part of it was covered in pimples. And I thought, wow, this is ridiculous. I didn't make the connection then, but I do now.
And was it suddenly, or was this something that's gradual, or was This was like
overnight.
overnight, all of a sudden you just got these pimples and
Yeah,
rashes.
overnight. I woke up in the morning and that my whole face was covered. So
Wow.
I was going down the allopathic route at that time. I had a doctor, a really nice doctor that I'd had since I was a child. And I went to him and he immediately put me on antibiotics. And of course, that cleared up the face just in days. I don't, it was a while ago, so I don't remember the exact number of days, but he said, take it all. So I ended up taking the whole thing that was prescribed and the rash went away. But little did I know that that was making a bad situation even a whole lot worse. Now, if I'd known at the time that I could have maybe helped with probiotics, I probably would have done so and perhaps dodged a bit of that bullet. But I did not have that knowledge at the time, so it ended up being a search. I was put on this medication. I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, first of all, and I was put on a medication, and it was a very strong medication that made me feel really, really sick. In fact, I got flu symptoms and I was in bed for a good number of days, 6, 7 days, where I just didn't want to do anything. I was really, really sick. And I thought to myself, okay, there has to be another side to this. So finally that was over and I started to feel a little bit better. And then I started to ask questions of my doctor. I went back and I said, I've been really sick with these pills. What's going on here? And he said, well, ulcerative colitis does not have a cure. But in order to treat this, you have to be on the medication for the rest of your life, basically, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I thought to myself, okay, it's very expensive also. And, it was really hard to afford it in that time of my life. It was a struggle, really. So I thought to myself, okay, they're telling me there's no cure, and they're telling me I need to take this for the rest of my life. So I came to the conclusion, well, it could only be masking the symptoms. Like if it wasn't helping the condition in any way to help me get better, it could only be masking the symptoms. So I thought to myself, okay, this doesn't work for me. It just didn't resonate with me as a person that I would be on this for the rest of my life without at least getting some kind of payback in better health, right? So I got off of it. And that, of course, immediately, well, probably about 4 or 5 days later, it brought the symptoms of the colitis back. So there I had my answer. Yes, it was working, but it was only masking the symptoms. And then when I stopped the medication, back it came.
Yeah.
So that started a 9-year journey for me to find out what I could be doing differently. And I researched everything I could find at the time. This was in the early 80s. There was no internet. I was at the library. I was searching out periodicals, magazines, articles in the paper, anything that I could find with regard to this, I looked into. And there was not a lot out there. I mean, there were people that were sick with it, but there was not a lot out there. So I basically tried a number of things, a few supplements here and there that I heard were good. I tried something called bee propolis, which is actually the scrapings. The bees take scrapings off the resin off trees, and they surround their hive with this propolis. And what that does is it keeps out impurities from their hive, basically. So that's something they use. And then this was available in a capsule supplement. So I thought, okay, I'll try that because I'd heard that that would work. And that actually did work for quite a while. But again, I think it was only masking symptoms because later on I found out it's an antibacterial and I was killing something in there. And once I stopped taking it, that something got a hold again into my system and it was working again. So again, I knew, okay, here I've masked the symptoms. I'm not well yet. There's still something going on. So then I went further into research, further more reading, more talking to people, and more just looking wherever I could. And then I found aloe vera juice. I heard that. It's funny. I went to a new hairdresser because I saw somebody in a shopping center that was at one of my stores, and I said, "Oh, I like your hair. Who do you go to?" And it was obviously to be meant to be more of an exchange than it was, because I got to this lady's hairdresser, and she's telling me that her son had colitis and that he was keeping it in check with aloe vera juice. And I thought, okay, if it works for him, then I'll give that a try too, right? And I mean, I know now that aloe to some degree is very healing anyways for a
Yeah.
lot of things, like you put it on burns and, you
Yeah.
know, all that kind of stuff. It's really, really healing. So I went on to that, and that actually made me feel good for quite some time. But then I thought, okay, let's give this a shot. Um, is it going to help me? Like, is it done? Or am I still in the throes of, working with something here? So I went off it. And of course, there again, a few days later, my symptoms came back.
And
So I
how
thought,
long had
okay,
you been going on with symptoms then? Like this, the symptoms kicked in overnight out from nowhere. You were feeling great, and then one day you woke up and you weren't.
oh no, I was starting to get like on the left, the descending colon. I was starting to get every morning when I woke up, I got these twinges there, and it was really sore, and that went on for gosh, a number of days before I actually got the actual bleeding and stuff.
No,
That
I'm
went.
talking about when you had the first initial breakout that you had, where you woke up and you went, something's seriously wrong here.
Mhm.
Had you had any indication before that anything was going on, or was it just like completely out of the blue, went from the first time you woke up with pimples all over you?
No, that was when I came off the medication, with the pill, right? So
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't catch that part. So basically, you came off the birth control pill, and that triggered
that triggered that
these things.
reaction.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
So
exactly what it
now
was.
with the aloe vera juice, and you're stopping the aloe vera juice, how far into this journey? How has it been? Months or days, or how long
No,
has it?
it's been years. It's
Years.
it's been years.
So
Yeah.
you've been suffering for years, and then
Yeah.
you discovered B propolis. How many years was it before you got into B propolis and aloe vera juice?
Probably about 5 or 6 years in. So middle of 80s. And I was still going, and then there were still symptoms, of course, as I said, when I stopped these things, and they were great because while I'm taking them, I'm feeling better. I'm able to do stuff. Um, as you know, your dad and I, in the throes of all of this, we're building our first house, and then we built our second house. So, and life was pretty busy, and you just sort of get in the space where you're in the throes of it, and you do, like, it becomes the norm.
Mhm.
And in the meantime, I'm still not feeling well, but we're getting on with life, and we've got so much stuff to do and everything. So it just kept me, the first the B propolis and then the aloe just kept me to a point where I would be functioning. Whereas if I wasn't, then anybody that's familiar with the symptoms of ulcerative colitis would know what I'd be experiencing. So
Yeah.
yeah, so those two things kept me functioning, and then because the system is in dis-ease, the digestive system especially, it's not getting the nutrients that it needs. So I was losing weight, and I was losing weight over the period of time that we're talking about here. And then I got to the point where my 5'10" frame was 126 pounds.
Wow.
And my friends and family were just looking at each other going, what's going on here? There's something wrong, right? Well, I knew there was something wrong. I just hadn't talked about it because in those days you just didn't even mention stuff like that. And, there wasn't a cure that I was aware of. Otherwise, I would have shouted it from the rooftop, right? But the thing is, when it got to the point where I was losing that much weight, I was going to say my husband, but my husband, your dad said, something has to change here. You just can't keep going on like this because there's nothing that's getting this fixed, right? So he said, why don't we try meditation?
So before that, just to recap, I'm just getting my head around, like, I'm getting my head around this as an adult, because as a kid I had no idea what was going on.
Well, no, of course not. I'm not going to bother you as a kid with stuff like that, right?
Right. So um so you had how many years on medication?
On medication, um, probably about a year.
Okay, so you came off the birth control pill, and was there a reason for that? Why you wanted to do that?
Yeah, on some level, I kind of knew this wasn't a good thing to do.
So you
And
had knowing a sense that this was probably every time you took it, you felt like
yeah,
maybe.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
That
so
knowing what I do now with who I am, I can understand that perfectly. But at the time, I didn't know why. But then we also decided we were going to start a family too. So, and here you are.
yeah, ta-da!
So, yeah.
No
So
more, no
that was
more.
part of it as well. So,
Okay, so you came off the birth control pill, um, that created a response in the body.
mhm,
Then you went to the doctor because that's what people
mhm.
do. And then you tried medication for a year, and every time you stopped it, it didn't work, and they told you there was no cure. So then you started finding natural remedies. So the B
Mm,
propolis and the aloe
mm.
alone with no medication kept the
Yeah,
colitis symptoms at bay as long as you
yeah.
were taking them the whole
And
time.
I'll get to that. I'll tell you why. I'll get to that. But that's a little bit further down the line.
Okay.
When Peter suggested meditation, at the same time, two things happen simultaneously, and this is where synchronicity comes along in your life, right? He said, "Let's go meditate," and in the meantime, I had filled out a little chit in a magazine to win something, right? And it was a health magazine. It was called Alive, and it said to win something, and I don't even remember what I wanted to win. I don't think it was what I got, but what I got was this canister arrived in the mail, and in there were 30 packages, and each package contained vitamins and minerals, and I think there might have even been a probiotic in there for 30 days. So I took one package of all of what was in there for 30 days. Now, I had been doing some supplements, but I don't think I'd been doing enough of them, right? So this gave me an overall uh, more complex of what I needed. And I think it was in a way meant to be that way, because when we did the meditation and I got the vitamins, it was a complete turnaround for me in that I got vocal and I started asking for help. And I believe we all have spirit guides, and some people call them angels, but there are people that are here to help in the other realm if we ask for it, but we have to ask for it because they can't act unilaterally because of the law of free will. So it has to be a free will choice. So I started getting vocal and I said, somebody's got to be able to help this. I've had enough of this. This has been going on way too long and I need help. So, due to a circuitous route of if we hadn't gone to see certain people, I would not have got to their daughter, who's an iridologist. And at first, we were reluctant to do this, and there was another person involved that kept saying, "You got to go to these people and help them do this," right? So we did that. Anyways, whole other story. So while we're there with these people, they say, "Oh, we have a daughter." They told us about their family, and the son was a heart surgeon in Chicago, and one of their daughters was an iridologist in Vancouver, and he was the husband that we were with, and the wife. He was an executive with Chrysler, the Chrysler company. Excuse me, and he moved to the island here to retire. So we met them, and he said, "Yes, my daughter's an iridologist," and I explained what had been going on with me, and I said, "Do you think she can shed any light on this?" And they said, "Yes, go see her, go see her." So they lined me up with her phone number, and I phoned her up, and she made an appointment, and we went over to Vancouver, and she looked at my eyes, and she said, like I told her, "This is colitis, right?" And she said, and I never actually, on some level, I have to say also that I never owned it. Like it wasn't part of me. So I never owned it. And that's very important when we get to the mind stuff.
So tell me
But
what you mean by that. You never owned it. What do you? I know what you mean by.
I never felt that it was me, that it was part of me. Like some people will own a disease and it becomes a part of their identity. Well, I never ever felt like I wanted to take that on.
You never
And
claimed.
I never ever on some level felt that I had it either. But then we get to Carol, her name was Carol, and she looked in my eyes and she said, "I don't see colitis." And she says, "But wait a minute, I'll go get my better light. So she had this light and this magnifying lens on the end of the light, and she looked into the pupils. And I have to explain, first of all, what it is.
Yes.
And here's the iridology book that I am getting, because it opened up a whole new research line for me, because it was so darn fascinating. And this book with done by Bernard Jensen is just amazing. It has so much more than just the iridology information. It
And
has
he's
also,
a pioneer in the health field, isn't he? Like,
yes, he is very much so, and in cleansing the body and all sorts of things. But
mhm.
anyway, so she's and what it is, I should explain for anyone that doesn't know what it is that if you look into the irises and even parts of the other part of the eye, the irises are sort of, there's a designation to each part of each eye that corresponds to different organs in the body. And it's kind of like reflexology of the feet.
Mhm.
And, you know, and even the teeth apparently are corresponding to certain organs as well, with all the energy and everything. It's all kind of connected. And it was a way, I guess, for ancient people to be able to see what was happening within a body, because nobody was cutting anybody open. You know, so it's another way of devising sort of a diagnosis of what's going on within the body. So
Yeah.
she says, no, I don't see colitis. And then she had a more specific look with the light in there and the better lens. And she looked around very carefully and she said, nope, I still don't see colitis. And I said, Carol, okay, I'm really happy to hear that. But if it's not colitis, what is it?
Yeah.
Right? So she said, I see a band of yellow all around the pupil, which is the designation of the large intestine. And of course, that's where I was having trouble, right? And I said, okay, what's the yellow? And I could see it, you know. She said, look at this. And I said, I could see it, you know. There was definitely a yellow band all the way around. And I said, okay, what is it? And she said, it's an overrun of Candida albicans, which is yeast, right? So basically, what I figure happened is that the normal bowel flora was changed with the birth control pill.
Sure.
And then when the phase broke out, a big dose of antibiotics went on top, and that even made all the symptoms worse. So you got a double whammy there, right?
So, and
And
you have a lot of antibiotics as a child then too.
I did too, because I had throat stuff going on, tonsillitis and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, this came to a head here.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, when you think about how resilient the body really is, we have homeostasis, which basically keeps the body healthy as much as it possibly can, as long as we give it good things, right, to work with. And I kind of look at my body as a fine-tuned engine. You got to give it good fuel and keep it running properly, and it'll work for you really well. So anyway, so
So
she said,
before you go any further, share how old you are if you don't mind, because we haven't said that yet.
oh, okay, I'm in my 72nd year. So doing pretty good. Now my health now is awesome, but that we'll get to that too, because you're responsible for part of that as well. But anyway, the this kind of provided me with an insight. Okay, there's no colitis, an overrun of yeast. I said, okay, what do we do? And she said, well, I have somebody that works on the North Shore, a naturopath named John Matson, and he wrote a book. And in how synchronicity works, a friend of mine that lived in Vancouver at that time had already said, hey, we've got this guy over here and he wrote a book and it's really awesome and you should read it. And I hadn't read it. But then when she told me about that, I thought, okay, that's the second time I've heard this guy's name. You know, it's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
So we made an appointment to go over there. And basically, what he did was he concurred with the diagnosis. Yes, there is definitely an overrun of Candida yeast in your large intestine, right? So I had already read his book by the time we got over there. And I saw in there that he had testimonials. And one of the testimonials was of a woman that had the identical symptoms as I had. Identical, down to a T. It could have been me, but it wasn't. And I thought, oh, I read what he had done, and he had eradicated that Candida overrun. And basically in 3 weeks, she was well, it gone, right? So I said to Peter again, I said, we're going over there. I said, and if he can do this for this woman, he can do it for me, right?
Mhm.
So the mindset was already there. I'm going for this. So we went over there.
So what year was this now?
That was 88 or 9, 88, I think. No, 80, 89, because that was the end of it. So it was towards the end of the illness. So in 88, we started meditating. And I started taking the supplements and everything. And then by 89, early 89, I got to Dr. Matson. So he eradicated this albicans and Candida albicans. And he said, okay, when you're done with the 3 weeks of something that was at that time called mycosidin, and it was actually based on coconut oil, right? And he said, when you're done with this prescription, that it is the natural prescription, take a heavy dose of probiotics as well afterwards. So I did. And in the meantime, we were still meditating as well. And after 3 weeks, I got off the medication that he had given me. It seemed to be pretty good. I took the probiotics as well, and there was nothing reoccurring. So it was a matter of eradicating the overrun, which I was doing partly with B. propolis and partly with aloe, but it wasn't enough. It had to be knocked out.
Yeah.
And then in order to be knocked out, we had to recolonize with the probiotics
Yeah.
in order to get that flora going on again. And then in the meantime, we were still meditating, and I kind of feel it was responsible for lightening up our consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided to eat a little bit better because I wasn't going backwards, I was going forwards. There was just no way I was returning here. 9 years was enough. So we decided to eat a little more lightly and started eating vegetarian. I think it was one meal a week, and still eating other stuff for the rest of the time. And then what we found after about 3-4 weeks is that we were actually looking forward to that one meal. So we thought, okay, let's make it a couple of meals, right? So we
Yeah.
started that way just by doing something different. And we started a couple of meals, and then we were looking at each other one day and we said, do we really need to still retain the meat? And both of us went, no. So it was really nice that we're both on board with that too. That really, really helped as well. So we became vegetarian at that point, and went to search out information here about that. There wasn't much out there at that point either. When you went out to eat, you got a Caesar salad and some French fries, and that was pretty much it because nobody was on board yet, right? But that changed because there's a whole new wave coming along now that's really going vegetarian. But anyway, we joined the organization. We got some wonderful friends out of that, and we ended up having potlucks together and sharing a lot of information together on health stuff. And, it was a really, really awesome journey. It was really transformational to me because we were turning into different people. Because when you think about meat, it tends to ground you, and when that came out and we were eating more lightly, the whole consciousness seemed to change, and I got into changing a mindset of seeing everything well instead of like when I was in the throes of the disease. I'd get up every morning and I'd see how bad, is it bad? How bad is it? Is it worse? Is it better? But the focus was on how bad is it, right?
Yeah.
And then when
Managing illness.
pardon me?
Managing illness.
Yeah, exactly right. Managing illness. Right?
Yeah.
So when I changed my mindset on that and started seeing wellness instead of illness, that's it. I didn't go back. I just didn't go back. So that helped as well as all of what happened with the naturopath. That helped as well was the mindset of that. So it came to a point where I thought, hey, I've done this, right? And then I had a friend that kept saying to me, you have to share this. You have to share this. People have to know what you've done because a lot of people are sick and, maybe they can gain something out of this. And then I thought about that for quite a while. And I thought, yeah, I could do a book on this and, it might cover 25 pages. but that's it, and that's not a book. So, that didn't resonate with me to do a book on just that. But then later on, when I became familiar with universal law principles and how that works within our life, I decided to start the book with the health journey, the journey back to health, and then go on from there, the rest of the journey into spirituality. So that way, those two things could coincide. And then, of course, I had a bigger book because there was more information to share at that point in time.
So before you touch on that part, just to pause just for 1 second. So basically, you were ill for 9 years. It took you 9 years to eradicate the symptoms of what you had been going through, which was the source of that was candida overgrowth, which was an imbalance of the gut flora in the intestine, in large intestine. In the large intestine. Okay. And
so let me just interrupt you for a sec. That was actually worse than that, because when I got to Dr. Matson, he said it had gone systemic, right up to the brain. And I had rashes. At that time, I had rashes coming up over my eyelids. So, it was trying to come out everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So rashes over my eyelids. So it had gone systemic. And I see where you posted on Facebook recently about the link between depression and the gut. Well, if it goes systemic, the yeast is in your brain too. So, yeah.
So you were ill. You built 3 houses. You and Dad built 3 houses over that time.
Yeah.
Like, you guys built these houses. You didn't have them built. You were working full time. How many hours a week?
40.
40 hours a week, plus commute. And then you had a small daughter.
Yes. A wonderful child, by the way.
So sometimes. So you had all that going on, and you still built 3 houses, and you still worked full time, and you still basically wouldn't accept that you were diagnosed with something, misdiagnosed with something, and then told there's no cure for it. You're going to have to be on medication for the rest of your life. So you said, that's not going to work for me. So you started doing your own research, and just by setting the intention in your heart towards wanting to heal yourself, you followed the signs. It's like the signs were laid out for you. And sometimes maybe we don't see them the first time, but you said that, somebody would mention something and someone else would mention something. I know the story of the woman at the supermarket was, I remember you telling me that story. That was one of the first things that led you to natural health, where you saw this beautiful woman at the supermarket.
Oh, yeah.
Share about that just real quick.
Yeah.
I know we have other things to cover too, but.
Yeah, you were a little baby, and you were in this little, with the outlot since then, this little GM car seat, right? And it was so easy. You could take it from the car, and I plunked it down on the checkout, and you were right there with me. So I'm buying all sorts of good, what I consider really good stuff, because at that point I was eating meat still, but it was still good stuff, right? I wasn't into a lot of junk food or anything. But the lady in front of me, I was with my mom at the time, and the lady in front of me was piling all this stuff on her side of it. And she was putting in pineapple, grapes, apples, oranges, all live food, celery, avocados, peppers, tomatoes. And it sat there, and it just, to me, it just glowed. And I thought, wow, that is absolutely beautiful. And then I looked at her, and she had this amazing skin, and she looked vibrant, absolutely vibrant. And I said to my mother, look at this lady, I whispered, and then look and see what she's buying. There was a connection, an immediate connection, because I'm actually very aware of these kind of things. So my mother kind of looked at that and looked at the lady and went, wow, right? So the connection to me at that point, I hadn't really gone on this journey yet, but the connection was made between eating live stuff and good food and this person looking really, really healthy.
And so that was back in the early 80s. Doctors didn't even admit that what we ate affected our health back then.
Right.
And here you are making that connection just with your eyeballs. It's common sense. It's in your face. Now we know that live enzymes are required for us to absorb our food.
Yeah.
We know a lot more than we did back then. People are still sick now. So what's going on?
Well, there's the health connection is also with the mind, as we mentioned earlier. Um, it's necessary to choose the focus carefully, because where focus goes, energy flows.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was trying to convey earlier, in that we need to keep on the positive rather than looking for the bad, like look for the good, right? And Bruce Lipton, who is, I don't know if any of your people know him, but he does the biology of belief.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about that, the biology of belief, right? And one of his quotes is, the moment that you change your perception is the moment that you rewrite the chemistry of your body. So if we look at that, and that happened to me, the moment that I got positive and stopped looking at all the bad of it and started looking towards the good of it, it did change my chemistry, and it became a better journey. So I totally, completely am on board with that. And when I saw that quote, I thought, yeah, I've lived that quote. And
So
then,
before we continue, I just want to share one quick comment that Jaylene posted.
okay.
She's saying, thank you for sharing your story. It truly helps us who are going through similarities and those that we know who are as well. So just wanted you to know that you're getting lots of feedback.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jaylene.
Okay, I won't interrupt you again. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so then after getting better and feeling good, and I mean, research was always ongoing, but then I got into the lightened consciousness and I started looking at parapsychology more closely. I had done that in the earlier years before I got sick, but I started looking at that more closely. And this is where I discovered the mind-body connection, which is easy to say, but I'm a research mind, so I got to know what's behind that, right? So I researched that and came upon the pioneer of that expression, which was Dr. Candace Pert.
Mm-hmm.
And she basically discovered, she was working with someone else in a laboratory, and they discovered that there are neuropeptides in the brain. And every part of the rest of the body, all the organs and everything else, has neuropeptide receptors. Now, what does that mean? It means we have a foreman and we have a crew. So what comes from here, there's actually a science that says what you're thinking and what you're expressing is going to the organs.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part of that is, of course, if you say the phrase I am, and whatever follows behind that, we're creating, right? So the mind-body connection in that respect is not just social speak. It's actually, there's a science behind it that actually works, and she proved this, and she proved other things as well. And she I think she passed away now, but she did a lot of really good research that was approved by other scientists as well to go into that. And I really appreciate that, because I like to always know what's behind something. It's not just good enough to know something. I want to know the nuts and bolts of it, basically. So so that led me to her. And then in the meantime, I started getting interested in taking courses of natural healing stuff. So we took a Reiki course, and we learned about pranic healing, which is energy stuff, of course. And then we decided to do an Ayurveda course, and that was with Dr. Vasant Ladd. He was working out of New Mexico, and in the summertime when it got too hot, he worked out of California. And he was a fantastic person, really known in that field, really, really well known in that field. So we went to an introductory evening with him. And if you understand Ayurveda, it's done on a system where you sort of get diagnosed as a vata, pitta, or a kapha, and these are called doshas, right? Mm-hmm. So each person has sort of a body form, and it goes into other things as well. But he wanted examples of these three doshas to come up to the front of the room, so that we could share, what the technicalities of the doshas were. So they chose a vata, they chose a pitta. And was that you, Peter? Yeah, my husband was the Pitta. So they chose him, and then they chose a Kapha. And a Kapha person is somebody that's with a really, really heavy body, right? Quite heavy body. And sometimes that can also come when the Kapha is out in other parts of the doshas. But in this particular instance, the Kapha person was quite obese. And she came up and sat down. And when she sat down, I kind of felt real compassion for her because on some level I could kind of sense her, like everybody was there, okay, fine. She comes up and I sensed her energy, right? And she was really what would be the best, probably more scared than anything. Like, how are people going to look at me, right? And all of that. So in that moment when she sat down, I thought, oh, lady, you're wonderful, right? Compassion, right?
Mhm.
And from my third eye, um, expressing to her was an arc of light. That's all, like a white light. It came from me and it went to her. And I thought, did that just happen? And then Dr. Ladd, who was sitting down in front of me, like we were sort of in a bit of a circle, he was sitting down in front of me. And as this is happening, he whipped his head around and looked to see where it came from, right? And I thought, oh my God, this really did just happen, because I'd never experienced the actual energy flow of things before. And that was my first indoctrination in 1988 somewhere, where we're in a little tiny basement room, and there's this energy flowing out of me to this person because I'm having compassion for her for being able to go up there and do this, right? So that I thought, oh my goodness, there is something really interesting going on here. So that led me to a further um, research project of going down the energy line. And it just fascinates me, the quantum physics of that. There is now quantum physics on the offshoot of quantum mechanics, which is taking a view of things on the quantum level. And when we have um, a special instrument to be able to look at everything in our world, like if I knock on this table, it's solid. But if we were to have a special instrument that shows that, taking down to the quantum level, you will actually see molecules moving. So this is where the all of everything is based on energy comes in, right? Everything is moving. There's just a different density here than in something else,
Yeah.
but it's all based on vibration. And that takes me to a quote as well, with the energy part of that, and that's from Nikola Tesla. And he said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think energy, frequency, and vibration.
Mhm.
And basically, I looked that up and I thought, okay, what's he saying here? Well, energy is the available power. Frequency is occurring on a level, a constant level. It can be a constant level. And the vibration is the motion of the particles that are being transmitted. So you basically have frequent available power that's constantly in motion, and that actually explains what's happening in our universe, everywhere in our universe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really cool. I thought that was really cool. So yeah, I think we're getting down to my summation here, and that is that I'm still on a vegetarian diet. I'm taking lots of supplements. We exercise, we do yoga every day, we go walking, and in the better weather, we cycle and we do sailing as well. And I think that's very important, is to keep the body moving,
Mhm.
because that's, like a motor, right? You have a motor, so keep it functioning. And the research is ongoing. And then in the meantime, all of the food part was great, getting well through there, getting on a good diet, getting everything working really well. That works for me. And if everybody's different, so we all have to find what works for each of us. But then I got into the mind body connection and also the ancestral clearing work that you do. And that actually got rid of the emotional stuff I was holding. So it's sort of more of a holistic transformational journey then, when you get into putting it all together.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I'd like to just express some of the most important things that were most important to me. And that is that each day we get to write a new page in our book. And if we don't like yesterday's page, we do have the ability to change. And I encourage anyone to do anything to get a forward momentum going, because it is all energy. And oftentimes when we're in something, we get into this stuck area and the energy doesn't move. We're stuck here and that's it. And we don't know how to get out. But if we can see that any kind of momentum to get out of it, and I mean, that can be as simple as uh, walking in a park or in a forest, or if you're lucky enough to live by the water, whatever that is, that can change an energy instantly, because nature has an ability to do that really, really well. And any courses or anything, or whatever is interesting, just something that gets the energy unstuck,
Yeah.
so that we can move forward and start to get into a better place. And being all energy that is one of the most important things to remember. And again, the other part of that would be the focus. Where is our focus? What are we replicating? Because each time we have this focus, more of it comes back to us. That's the law of reciprocal action. We get the same thing coming back to us of where we are, kind of tuning like into a radio station. Which radio station are we listening to,
Yeah.
right? So that's
Exactly.
basically that part of it. So let's rewrite the story if we're not happy with it. That's certainly what I did, because I certainly wasn't happy with it. It just took me a longer time than I would have wished to get to that point. And that's why I like to share this information, because it doesn't have to be 9 years. It can be shorter if we know what tools to use in order to get out of some of these things. So, and in the throes, I know, because I've just been working with somebody on Facebook that's a very highly evolved spiritual person and knows all of this, or certainly maybe even more than this. And yet she was so stuck in the moment of being in the throes of what was going wrong, she couldn't get out. And I said, dude, the energy flow, move it.
Yeah.
And I don't care what you do, move out of that space and start again. And then, whatever that looks like to you, just move. So she did that. And actually it was, she knew.
Yeah.
So that was great too. But anyway, yeah, sometimes you just get stuck in there and you don't remember what to do.
Yeah.
So it's good to have a refresher on that.
Well, I was
Uh,
going to ask you, because what I was going to say was you you were given medication that took your symptoms away,
yeah,
and you could have just taken that pill for the rest of your life every day and been
yeah,
symptom free.
yeah.
Um, but isn't it harder to forge your own path without the internet and without the support groups and without all the people? I mean, I remember as a kid, people didn't talk about yoga or meditation or things like that. My
No,
friends were like, your parents are weird. And I
yeah.
was like, okay. And
And
now
nowadays,
a lot of those friends come back around and they're like, man, they knew like what they were talking about in the 80s. I go to Whole Foods now and hear people talk about it for like the first time, like they just discovered it. And I'm like, wait a minute, I heard about that at Andrea's house when, when we were kids. And I'm like,
yeah.
yeah. But what I was going to ask you was like, and that's okay. Everyone, there's no judgment in that. But did you ever have moments that you were like, I don't know if I can keep doing this? Like, how did you motivate yourself? And that's what I was going to ask you. And you led into that nicely about, going for walks in nature and things like that and the mindset stuff.
Yeah.
Um, is that what did you do when you had a hard time, when you were having like, I don't know if I can keep this up kind of
Well,
moment?
for one thing, it was really busy, so I had to keep going. Like I'm the kind of person that has to keep going. I have to do stuff to do, so it's got to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I had a family that I needed to take care of, so I just kept going. And fortunately, I didn't crash. I didn't hit the wall with that. There were moments, there were times when I thought, but by the end of it, especially when I said somebody's got to be able to help this, because this I'm done. at that point. But to get to that point, it was
Share
just
a little bit about that because you didn't touch on that earlier, and that's pivotal, I feel like, for you.
what to get vocal. Yeah, to get vocal.
A moment where you stated, like,
Yeah, somebody has to help this, right? And
yeah,
then and that's when I got to the iridologist
yeah,
through a circuitous route that if we hadn't taken it, well, it would have presented probably. Now I know it would have presented in a different way, but that's how it presented at the time. And fortunately, we listened. And I mean, if we take any step forward, we change the energy, and the universal energies are always there to help along the way. And then there's another quote that I really like, and it says that as you start to walk on the way appears.
mhm.
So you start
That's lovely.
anyway. Yeah, I like that too, and that is Rumi. One of my favorites is Rumi.
Yeah.
So basically, the Chinese call it the Tao, right? But it's called the Way. And basically, what that says to me is that when we take that step, any step, whatever that may be, we get further guidance or help in the form of books. Like when we were at a boat show once in Port Townsend, Washington, years ago, and many years ago, actually, over 25 years ago. And I went into this little bookstore in there and I found a book that just called, like, pick me up, right? And I looked at it and I thought, whoa. And it was the work of Ernest Holmes. And
Mhm.
that's like parrot psychology and all of that. And I thought, whoa, I have to have this. I just felt when I was holding this book, I got to have this. And I did. And it's an awesome book. And he started in with the universal law principles too. So, but that was in the 30s when people weren't even speaking about any of that.
That was
And
really cool.
some of my older research was with people like that they had to disguise things because they weren't allowed to be found out that they're talking about this, or they might get put in jail in certain countries, right? So yeah, it's been interesting, but now the world is wider open. We're heading into Aquarius, and the it's all about the ethers, which is what Aquarius is. Everything taking place in the ethers, and we see that already with our internet connections
Mhm.
and all of that. And the further part of that is setting us up for the mind connections within people, and that's already happening with a lot of people as well. But that's going to continue to be more so because I think that's what we're getting set up for with the constant uh, looking at people and communicating, right?
Well, our thoughts are not private. Our thoughts are not our own. As you showed with, you had a thought of a feeling of compassion for that person, and you literally were shown the light wave of that traveling to her. And, I'm sure that that happens all the time, regardless of what we're thinking, even if we can't see it.
That's right.
Like you
Yeah.
think about someone and then the phone rings and it's them, and it's like, or I send someone a message and they're like, oh, I'm just thinking about you. I'm like,
Yeah.
how does that work? Like maybe we're faster than the internet or something.
Yeah. Cause it's funny you should say that because I have an uncle in Oregon and I just start thinking about phoning him. He's 85 and I like to check in with him now and then. And I phone him quite a bit. And I just think about phoning him and then something comes up and I'm busy with something else. And I think, oh, I'll phone him tomorrow. And invariably he phones me. So he's already gotten my energy there somehow, and
Mhm.
he thought about me, so he phones me, and we actually laugh about that every time.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, what else? What would you say to people who are watching right now or watching the replay and they're working full time, raising children, building homes, building lives, single people working, young families, whatever people's situations are, older people, older life, whatever your situation is, what would you say to them to encourage them for people who are maybe just starting out on this path to start questioning? Maybe they've been told that life has to be a certain way,
Hmm.
and maybe they've had that whisper in their heart that maybe they don't have to believe that authority person. I'm trying to think about how to word this. What would you say? How, you know, because there's a lot. You don't want to ever advise people. But
Hmm.
what would you say to encourage people who are starting on their journey?
I would say you mentioned the heart, and for a lot of people, the 14 inches between the brain and the heart is a very long journey. And it's only 14 inches from there to there, but it's a lot of people can't get there. And if you can get to that point where you start to get that heart energy going and the heart chakra going and running things by your own gut instinct that actually comes from the heart, that's a start, is to get in touch with themselves, like get in touch with yourself and how do you feel about what your diagnosis is, or where you're going with this and where do you want to go with this, and then find the backup, like find the information needed to do whatever you need to do to go there. And for some people that is medication, and if that is, then that's their journey. For
Mhm.
me it wasn't, because it didn't resonate, and now that I see the person that I am, I can totally see why.
Mhm.
I just would not have been happy on medication for the rest of my life. I just couldn't go there.
Mhm.
And again, knowing that that's all that's going to do is mask something, because they said there's no cure. So they knew that that medication they were giving me was not going to fix anything.
And who knows what cascading effect that would have caused down the road.
Well, yeah, exactly. I remember, I should mention, my aunt was on hormone replacement therapy. And she was on it for, oh gosh, it must have been 15, 16, 17 years, something like that. I don't know exactly. But she went off it and she got full blown menopause. I don't know how long, like, I mean, it takes a while to get out of your body, right? But all of the symptoms of menopause that she had masked for all those years came back full blown. And then not only that, the reason she went off it is because she read that you had heart disease from that,
Mhm.
and that you could get breast cancer from that medication. And she already had breast cancer, and she said, "Okay, that's it. I'm done with this." And she passed away with heart disease. So she had both. So that again is a. I'm not saying people shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that this is what happened to this person, and it kind of resonated with the way I went too. But to get full blown menopausal symptoms in her late 60s was ridiculous. It wasn't supposed to be there then. It was supposed to be fixed, right? And she thought it was fixed, and it wasn't fixed. So
Yeah.
again, this was masking your symptoms, and it wasn't fixing the problem. So.
Yep.
And I would also say, if you go down the health path, the holistic health path, get yourself good practitioners that you're happy with, that know what they're doing, that know what they're doing well. I've had a naturopath for over 35 years until he retired about 3 years ago. And I had an acupuncturist for over 20 years, and he also retired. And I'm just in the midst of finding a new acupuncturist now to just get tune-ups with the seasons and all of that. So
Mhm. That was going to lead me to my next question, which was, what are you doing now to just maintain wellness at 72? You're on no medication,
no,
no prescriptions, anything like that? Nothing.
I'm on
What do you do to maintain your wellness?
I'm on supplements, and I will
Mhm.
continue to be, because they're cleansing. I'm also on a vegetarian diet still, because I feel that that's cleansing as well. It's cumulative effect. And
Mhm.
I saw that cumulative effect. The longer we were on it, the better our health was at the time. And I've continued that. The good practitioners, because if there is something that can be uh, seen ahead of time,
Mhm.
you can dodge a bullet by a diagnosis ahead of time if there is something coming along. The emotional health we talked about too. Get the emotionals in as well. A good practitioner to help with that. Yeah, a whole body, mind body
Awesome.
system to work with. So yeah, and I'd like to say also that the journey was hard, but it also, there was learning all the way along the way. It was meant to be that way. So I don't hold anything against that journey. It would have been nice to have come through it quicker, but this is something that I needed to take step by step for the learning and for the experience. And I did experience quite a bit. I didn't tell you all of this here now, but I did experience quite a bit. So it's all learning, right?
Yeah. And it's helpful to have people who have walked that path already share their story, because I was sharing a little bit about your story with a friend of mine and she was like, "Oh, you're second generation then." And I was like, "Yeah, I never thought about that because, she's working on healing herself and then hopefully will spare her kiddos a lot of the stuff that she's going through now." So I'm like, well, yeah, I'm an example of the result of the work that you're doing now. So yeah, thanks for walking that journey so I didn't have to. I mean, not to
Yeah,
say I didn't have my own stuff, but
I'm really happy I did that you didn't have to. That's awesome. Yeah, yeah.
so thank you for sharing tonight. We've had lots of wonderful comments. We haven't had any questions come up. Probably, I'll put this up here too with your website, probably just because of the level of in-depth knowledge that you've been sharing has, taken us down many rabbit holes already tonight.
Yeah.
Just like a little bit. I made notes on different people that you mentioned. So if anyone's interested, I can post a little comment that has information about the Ayurvedic and iridology and Bruce Lipton and some of the people that you mentioned. But if anyone has any questions, go ahead and share them now. And otherwise, we're gonna probably get ready to sign off here in a minute. Is there anything in closing?
Just that it's been a learning, transformative journey, and it was my journey, and I guess I needed to get through each part of it to come to the next part of it. And the movement is more important than anything, is to keep going.
Yeah.
So like I said earlier, we each have a new day every day. We have a new day, and it doesn't have to be in the same stuck energy, in the same whatever the situation is. If we can get out of it and change that energy, then even that part of it will make us feel better.
Awesome. Okay, so Ulla's website is ullajacobs.com. You can see information about her health journey. She has one book written already that you can find information there, and some blog articles. Otherwise, you can find her on Facebook. She's tagged on this Facebook Live. Thanks so much, Mom.
You're welcome. Thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah, for coming on and sharing. And then if you have any friends, if you're watching live and you think, oh, so-and-so needs this information, oh, my friend, my neighbor, my family member, just feel free to tag them in this post, or you can go ahead and add them to the event page. We would love for this information to reach everybody that needs it. So thank you.
Namaste.